Gentlemen, now we will begin 15-minute overtime period.
Tails never fails. Tails never fails.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Overtime Win podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nguyen. This is episode 1, reviewing the NFC East. We got a great show for you today. We have a great collection of shows we will present to you today over the next 4 episodes. And basically each episode will review a division within the NFL. And we're going to look over draft needs, free agency needs, and sort of how teams should proceed, in my point of view, with their plans to develop into playoff caliber teams. So how we do it today is that we'll go through each of the positions, starting with offense, starting with quarterback, running back, tight end, offensive tackle, interior offensive line, then wide receivers, then defensive ends, then defensive interior, linebackers, corners, then safeties. And for each position, I will basically describe what my evaluation of that core is, and give some possible recommendations going forward. So first up on the list is the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorite team. I've been a fan of them for 4 years. I've been through them since, well, they sucked, and I've been through the lows, I've been through the highs. I know what it's like. I know the team in and out. So I think this will be probably the most accurate of all my reviews, all my roster reviews, but we'll see. Let's give it a try. So let's start at quarterback. We have here Carson Wentz and Nate Sudfeld. So Carson Wentz, if you can remember, about 2 seasons ago, he was literally number 3 on the NFL Top 100 list. He was very good. He was an MVP caliber quarterback. He was that good. But then because of an injury that lingered on to last season, his sort of value has been sort of looked down upon in regards to other teams. But still, he's a starting caliber. He's a Pro Bowl caliber. I think he's pretty good. So we have no problems there. Our backup is he has some experience. I wouldn't change anything much. Moving on to running back, we got here Jordan Howard, Corey Clement, Josh Adams, and a collection of other running backs that fit other roles. But the main 3, they're a serviceable bunch. Jordan Howard has some experience. He's more of a downhill kind of running back. Corey Clement is more of a gadget player. He's more involved in the passing game. Josh Adams is more of a downhill runner too. The thing about the Eagles is that before we used to be a running back by committee team, sort of, and so it was a little bit predictable what kind of play the offense would use based on which running back would be in the backfield, right? That's the direction that we don't want to be going toward. So I think for the past 3 drafts, the Eagles have been trying to target do-it-all running backs in the first round. For example, we try to go after Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara, those kind of do-it-all players. But obviously, they're taken before us. So that's been our struggle. That we've been sort of settling, I guess. In my point of view, I think this team, based on how it functions, I don't prioritize running back that much. I wouldn't say, okay, go after it in the first round. But I'll say, okay, yeah, maybe in the middle rounds, 2 or 4, some of that, So that's something I would keep my eye on. I'll adjust later. Okay, moving on to tight end, we got Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Richard Rodgers, and one more, Joshua Perkins. Okay, so the first 2 should be notable to you. Zach Ertz, he has the most tight end reception yards in the NFL last season. He's been really good. Personally, I think he's the best tight end in the NFL, but whatever, you can make your own judgments. But he's really involved in the pass game. Dallas Goedert fits a similar role mold. He was taken by the Eagles last season in the 2nd round. The Eagles jumped in front of Dallas to take him, sort of in spite, but also he's been a lot more than we expected him to be. He's been a great addition to the pass game too. He fits a similar role to Zach Ertz, but he can block. That's the thing. He's a little bit more versatile. So I think the tight end position right now, like just those two players alone, is pretty good. But we also have two other sort of role players that can do a lot of the run blocking that we might ask of them. So that's not really too much of a need. Well, that's not really a need that the Eagles should address in the draft or free agency. Okay, moving on, we got tackle, left tackle, right tackle. Left tackle, Jason Peters and Jordan Mailata. And right tackle, Lane Johnson, Halapuli Vaitai. Ooh, that's a long one. Then a bunch of other free agents that we could develop. But the main four are Peters, Mailata, Johnson, and Vaitai. Right. So the situation at hand right now is that Jason Peters is getting really old, and he's about to retire, I believe, in about 2 or 3 years. Probably 2. Probably 1. It could be 1 to 3 years, right? So then there's a need to replace him soon. A lot of other people, other fans want to suggest that we should draft a left tackle early, so we could replace him with Jason Peters as soon as possible. But in my evaluation, I think that you already have a player who can have the potential to live up to that. So here's what I think the Eagles should do going forward. So Halapuli Vaitai stood in place of Jason Peters when he was injured 2 seasons ago in the Super Bowl run playoff. And he did pretty well. He didn't allow any, I think 1 sack maybe, but he did well for being a sort of backup player, right? I think he can continue having that role going to this season, sort of developing under Jason Peters. And this next season, if it comes necessary, he can also fill that role while we develop our other tackle, left tackle, Jordan Mailata. Okay, Jordan Mailata was taken last year in the 7th round of the 2018 draft. He's a developmental player. He's never played a professional football game in his career, or in a high school level or any other level, because he transitioned from rugby. He's an Australian Samoan player, and he's really big. He's got flexibility. He's got the strength to hold up. But the main thing, obviously, is just experience. So he needs to sort of develop that. And I think personally that he can have that potential to fill in that role that Jason Peters once had. And I'll tell you, by the way, Jason Peters is one of the top tackles in the league when he's healthy, when he was in his prime. But because he's on the decline, sort of, I wouldn't say he's that good anymore or can't sustain his strength because, obviously, age. I think Jordan Mailata can take that role, and I'm really, really high on him. A lot of other Eagles fans have been high on him. But again, there's a lot of worries. If I were the Eagles, I would take a tackle in the draft, probably within the first 3 rounds. But that player should fill the role of a swing tackle. So that can play right tackle, left tackle, sort of be that backup role. Or in the case that Jordan Mailata doesn't develop fast enough, he can take that left tackle spot. And I think that's what I think should happen. But we've never really had to face this issue before because Lane Johnson and Jason Peters have been holding it down for the longest time. They've been all consistently like top of their class. Okay. So moving on, interior offensive line. At left guard, we got Isaac Seumalo, a 3rd round pick from the 2016 draft. We have at center, Jason Kelce, a 6th round pick out of the 2011 draft, and Brandon Brooks, a traded player who we got from Houston, who has been holding it down for 3 years now. Notably, I want to say right now is Jason Kelce has been ranked number 1 by Pro Football Focus and other sites based on his 2018 season. He's been really good, even though he's smaller in size. He's really instinctual. He knows how to contribute. He knows how to pull, how to contribute in a lot of running schemes. So he's really valuable. But here's the thing: he's also getting old. A number of sites have said that he wants to retire soon, and it would, whenever someone says, okay, they want to retire, that probably means they're on the decline mentally and physically, right? So that's something I would look out for if I was the Eagles. I'd say, okay, who can take that role going forward, and then how do we find a backup to sort of fit in his footsteps, I guess what I'm saying. So what the Eagles have suggested so far is that in the case that Jason Kelce, our center, were to retire, they would move Isaac Seumalo, our left guard, to center, and move our 6th-round pick from last year, Matt Pryor, who has shown like a lot of promise, I should mention, into the lineup. I think that would be a good group, but then also you got to consider that Brandon Brooks, our right guard, was injured last season, and he probably won't be ready to actually contribute until maybe a quarter into the 2019 season, right? So I'm a little bit scared about that personally, because basically if it comes down to it, we only have 4 players who are in the mix for the 3 starting jobs, for the 3 interior offensive line jobs. That's sort of scary. Personally, if I were the Eagles, I would probably draft an offensive lineman in the draft who has a lot of versatility, right? They can go inside, in the line, outside of the line. That would best fit them for this situation, regarding the health concerns, regarding the retirement of Jason Kelce, and also in the long run, because I know for sure that Brandon Brooks he's being paid a lot right now. I'm sure that in a couple years, maybe 2 years, he's gonna have to sign a new contract, and that might be a lot of money to handle. So I think if the Eagles want to maintain a status of Super Bowl contenders, playoff contenders, they should strongly consider keeping him on the replenishing and having depth. Okay, moving on, we got wide receivers. So we got here at our starting wide receivers: Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, and our backups include Matt Collins, Doran Miller, and Shelton Gibson. Okay, so the starting 3: Alshon Jeffrey. You already know he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good. He's getting up there in age, but he's not there yet, so we don't have to really concern about that. Our second up is Deshaun Jackson, a speed threat, someone that can go downfield. He has speed, and someone that can open the offense a little bit for the Eagles. And then Nelson Aguilar was a first-round pick at the 2015 draft. He's had some struggles in the beginning of his career, but then sort of now in the recent, or not recent, but I'd say in the last 2 years, he's really developed. He's really matured, and he's shown that he deserves a starting spot, right? The only concern I have really is that Deshaun Jackson obviously is old. He's getting older. I think he's going to retire soon, maybe 2 years, maybe. Nelson Aguilar is on his contract year. And the catch sheet, I think he's owed $9 million for the 2020 season. And I think that's a little bit too much for the Eagles to want to keep him. So going forward, I would say wide receiver is a need. But that's something that we could easily solve by picking someone in the later rounds of the draft, sort of developing the guys we have now, Matt Collins and Sheldon Gibson, and to fill that role. I personally don't think it's too bad of a issue. And if anything happens, let's say one of these players have an injury, the Eagles could always rely on 12 personnel. What 12 personnel is one running back, 2 tight end, and therefore 2 wide receiver formation, right? We already mentioned before that the tight end position, we have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and they are a power of combo, right? They have the ability to catch the ball. They have the physicality, the strength, the height to do so, and that could really complement the Eagles if they're thinking about only employing 2 wide receivers on the field at one time, right? So I think it's not too big of a position need, but they could always improve. That sums up the offense. Okay, let's go to the defense real quick. Okay, defensive end. We got first round pick of the 2017 draft, Derek Barnett. We got Vinny Curry, so an older player that we acquired from free agency. That used to be on the Eagles, by the way. We got Deshaun Hall, and the player we picked up last season. Let's see, Brennan Graham, an older player, but we signed to a 3-year contract. He's one of the veteran players, but also one of the best defensive line players, one of the better for the Eagles. He's put up a lot of pressures, not necessarily a lot of sacks, but a lot of pressures, which sort of that's why he has such a liking for. That's why he has a liking from the Philadelphia fan base, because he's a really nice guy. He took a veteran home discount for the Eagles instead of going to another team, and he wants to retire here too. So that's a driving point. Another player is Chris Long, and also an older player, a veteran player, who has contemplated retiring this season or next season. But basically, the main point for him is that he wants to be in a system where he is employed, or like he's used often, right? He doesn't want to be in a rotation. He wants to be a starter. That's the thing with the Eagles, right? Is that we're not really we're not one deep, right? We're not one deep. We're 2 deep. We're 3 deep, right? Like the 5 names I listed so far: Derek Barnett, Vinny Curry, Deshaun Hall, Brennan Graham, Chris Long, and Josh Sweat. I will mention next. Those are 6 defensive ends that could be starting caliber players on other teams, right? But here's the thing: the Eagles prioritize their defensive line. We use a wide 9 technique, which means that we put a lot of our resources into those defensive ends to go after the quarterback. So, and then all the other the back 7, the corners, safeties, and linebackers just to cover, right? We don't want those defensive linemen to worry about having to defend the pass, having to defend. We just want them to rush after the quarterback, and that's why we spend so much resources on them, because that can be really tiring if you're going to use that system throughout a game, right? So that's why we need 6. We need 6 players to sort of maintain that. But obviously, Chris Long doesn't. He's one of those players where he wants to feel like he's a part of something, and that's something I think that hasn't been. That his time in Philadelphia hasn't been supportive of his intentions. I guess that's what I'm saying. So yeah, he could retire. That means we're probably going to be left with 5 defensive ends, like 5 starting caliber defensive ends, which in other people's minds, right, in an outsider's perspective, they'd be like, "Are you serious? 5? You have 5 starting caliber players who have all contributed in the past, right? Why would you need a defensive end?" They'll look at our big board, they look at our draft needs and say, "Why is defensive end a need?" Well, that's a need. That's what our system requires of our players. So yeah, I would consider drafting a defensive end in the draft, and sort of replacing the hole that Chris Long and maybe in the future an older player might have. Okay, moving on, we'll go to the defensive line, defensive interior. We got Fletcher Cox, a Pro Bowl caliber, yeah, All-Pro, consistently top 2 defensive tackle in the league. Second up, we have Malik Jackson. We traded for him. No, we didn't trade for him. Moving on to the other players on the defensive interior, Trayvon Hester and Bruce Hector. These are both players that we got undrafted last year. Another we got from practice squad of the Oakland Raiders. So these 2 have contributed a little. Trayvon Hester is notable for making the play on the field goal and taking the ball during the wild card game of the 2018 playoffs. So that field goal obviously led the Eagles to win that game. So he's pretty loved. He's really appreciated around the Philadelphia area, but he's not necessarily a player that should be a number 3. He could be a number 4, but not a number 3. That's why the Eagles really require and really need a third player to be in the inside, to rotate with Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, rotate between, and just so that they don't get tired, because obviously, like we said, the wide 9 technique, where it's always focused on pass rush. I think those starting 2 players will get tired really quickly if we don't have someone else to assist. Okay, moving on, we'll go to the linebacker position. Let's see. Okay, starting linebackers from sort of veteranship, from most veteran experience, most technical experience. First off, I'd say would be Nigel Bradham. He's not necessarily a middle linebacker, but he plays a role of a communicator for the defense, a leader, obviously. Second up, we have Kamu Grugier-Hill, a strong side linebacker. Strong side, by the way, is linebackers who are on the tight end side of the offense, of the opposing team's offense. Sort of, they're more in the role of covering those tight ends in short areas. And that's the 2 that we have from last season. The 2 good players that we have from last season, right? This offseason, we also acquired a linebacker, L.J. Fort, from Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not really confident in them, in his abilities. I'm not going to claim I do, because obviously I'm not I'm not an analyst by any means. I just do this for fun, right? But from what I hear, he provides a lot of versatility. He can contribute in special teams. And from what I know, that he has really good tackling ability. He's demonstrated that throughout his time in Pittsburgh. So I trust him. I think I trust him to hold down the fort. LJ Fort jokes. But I think that was a solid addition. That was a solid depth addition. Moving on, we'll have player Paul Warlow, who was injured last season, but is signing another 1-year deal with Philadelphia to try out, I guess. We also have Nathan Gary, a 5th-round pick from 2017. He's a developmental player. He was originally a safety, but then they moved him down to linebacker because the Eagles were aware of his range. Right, he has the ability to go from one sideline to the other sideline, and they want that kind of player to play in the linebacking core because, like I said, it has to do with the wide 9 technique. And so the need for safeties and corners are a lot more pressing than the need for linebackers, right? That's why you see a lot of teams only have really 2 starting caliber linebackers, and then the rest are sort of substitutes, right? Here's the thing too. If the Eagles really need a linebacker to step in the case that situation ever arises, if they ever need a linebacker to fill that linebacking role, they can also use their safeties. And here's what I like about the Eagles too. They have a player in Malcolm Jenkins, a safety. It's not only a starting strong safety for the Eagles, but he's also had his hands in the linebacking position, the corner position, the nickel corner position, and playing single high safety. He's been all those players throughout the defense. And I think his versatility is pretty admirable and very important to the Eagles. And that's the thing too. When you look around the NFL, you're evaluating rosters. You want to not just see where those position of needs are based on the number of players and the experience of players. You also want to use it based on their scheme, how the team is constructed, and also the players and their skill sets. So, for example, Malcolm Jenkins, he's proven that he's really versatile. He can be around. He can go around the defense, fill all those roles, and that's what makes the Eagles defense, I think, really successful, right? He fills that role. So I would say for now, the linebacking core, you don't need to touch it, right? You really don't need to touch it. It's fine as it is. It's not top notch. It's not the best in the league, but if you go into roster building with the mindset that you need to fix every position and every position needs to be the top of the line, you're going to set yourself up for failure, right? Because you only have so many first round picks. You only have so many second round picks. You only have so much cap space, right? And you also got to balance personalities. So you can't build a roster with that mentality. So I'm okay personally that the Eagles don't have a top-notch defense. They don't have to have 2 first-round pick linebackers, but at least they should be able to fill their role and fill the role fine. And I think that's the situation we have, right? Cameron Hill, Najee Badham have done a really good job, but also LJ Fort, Paul Warlow can step in, fill those roles if need be, right? And worst comes to worst, Malcolm Jenkins could always fill in that role at linebacker, right? He's really versatile. He's a hard hitter. He plays hard. He's older, but he plays hard. That then moves on to the defensive back. Let's start with the safeties this time. Safeties. Free safety, we have Rodney McLeod. He's an older player. He's on his last year of his. He's on his contract year this season. He's on his contract year this season with the Eagles. And the main thing is because in the last 2 seasons, he's been faced with a lot of injuries, an ACL, an MCL. So those injuries really hurt his tradability, I guess. So he's really playing for his chances to survive in the NFL. In the past, he's held his role well, right? Him and Malcolm Jenkins have held they have a really good tandem going. The thing is, because he's not necessarily the best at what he does. It's hard to say that he's hard to say that he's as valuable as a Malcolm Jenkins, right? So main thing that the Eagles know that other outsiders might not know, the Eagles fans know, is that Rodney McLeod is expendable at this point, right? Going forward, the Eagles have to have a plan in place to replace him next season. Not this season, because Rodney McLeod is still playing, but next season. They need someone to step into that free safety role and replace him. Because obviously, the Eagles are contending for a playoff spot, so we kind of want to make sure that each of our positions are secure. They don't have to be the best, but they have to be secure. Rodney McLeod has proven to the fan base that he is not necessarily the most secure player. Personally, I really like him as a person. I really like his skill set that he offers. But in general, I don't think he's the best fit. And that's something that the Eagles should address in the draft, in the first or second round picks. And that's something that the Eagles should continue to look forward to addressing in the future, with Malcolm Jenkins getting older, going to his 30s. If the Eagles want to, have a competitive roster, they need to improve that position. Going on, I should say, we have the cornerback position. We got our starting players are Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby. Our secondary players our backups are Sidney Jones, Rasul Douglas, and Kevon LeBlanc, and Avonte Maddox. That's, if you notice, that's 6 deep. That's 6 players. That's not just 1, 2, 3 for each of the cornerback positions: left cornerback, right cornerback, nickel cornerback. We also have one more player deep. Okay, and here's the thing. Here's the situation that the Eagles have, but a lot of other teams don't have, is that we have a lot of young players who have proven to be capable of starting in the NFL. Right, Jalen Mills has held his cornerback position for 2 years. 2 years he's held it down, even though he's a 7th round pick out of the 2016 draft. He's done very, very well when put in the spotlight. That's what I like about him. He has a great personality. He has a fiery spirit. He might be a little bit slower on the slow side, but he's still very physical at the line of scrimmage. On the other side, we have Ronald Darby. He's the opposite, actually. He's very fast. He has I believe, a 4.2, 4.2 40-yard dash, right? Those are the type of players that are nowadays more sought after in this sort of pass-first offense, pass-first league. But again, he's one of those players that are a little bit more expendable, similar to a Ronnie McLeod, because last season he tore his ACL. That's a little bit sad about the Eagles last season, I should add. Last season, a lot of players from the same positions were getting injured, and then that's why a lot of outsiders look at the Eagles' secondary, the free safeties and corners, and they say, okay, yeah, these are the position needs. The Eagles need a first-round cornerback, and that's what sort of doesn't piss us off, but that sort of makes us sort of question their credibility, right? Because if you really look at the situation, we have the two players I listed already who have proven to hold starting caliber roles, right? Then we have a Sidney Jones and a Rasul Douglas, a second-round pick and a third-round pick out of the 2017 draft, right? Both players have had starting roles last season. Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas have gone off and off on the injured list as well, but they have proven to be sort of valuable players, right? Valuable young players. Let's see, Kevon LeBlanc was picked up last season from the practice squad of Detroit, and Avonte Maddox was a fourth-round pick out of the 2018 draft. So these are all young players, right? These are all players on their first years, on their first years. So what they need is experience. They don't need more competition. They need experience, right? And none of these players have really held down their job for more than a solid year, right? Even Jalen Mills last season has held up for like half a season, and then he got injured. So a lot of NFL analysts like to mock cornerbacks to the Eagles in the first round. I say no, we don't need that. We really don't need that. The Eagles are fine. We need, if anything, we want time. And if push comes to shove, we'll address it in next year's draft, or we'll address it in free agency. But that's not something we need right now. And I think that's the direction that the Eagles will be going forward. On the next part of the podcast, we'll go over the other teams in the NFC East: Dallas, New York, and Washington. We'll go over the rosters. We'll go at a relatively faster pace. And we're back. This time we're going to go a little bit faster. Going forward in this podcast as well as all the other podcasts. I went a little bit long for the Philadelphia Eagles just because I know them a lot and just because I want to flex. But, going forward, I think we're going to go a little bit faster, and hopefully we can get this thing down before 45 minutes. Let's start at the quarterback position. Each one I'll just say yes, no, what they need, and move on. Right? It's a speed round. So first up, we got quarterback position. No, not a need. Dak Prescott sucks, but they probably don't need replacement. Running back position. They should draft someone. Ezekiel Elliott is not enough on his own because in the case that he were to be injured, I don't think the Cowboys could sustain their success. Right? The backup is Darius Jackson. He hasn't proven anything really. So yeah, I'd say draft someone, sign someone, undrafted free agent, someone just to fill in that role. Tight end. It sucks. It really sucks. Jason Witten signed a 1-year contract. He used to be a public announcer. A game broadcasting guy last season, and he's coming back into football. Personally, I don't think he's going to do that well. He's probably just going to fill a blocking role. That's not enough. The Cowboys need someone who's versatile. He's really not. The other three tight ends, Blake Jarwin, Rico Gathers, Dalton Schultz, they're okay. Not good enough. Pass catching tight end is something that they should adjust soon in the first through third rounds. Moving on to tackle. Good, but no depth. They only have one player of depth in Cameron Fleming, and that's not enough. Personally, I think Tyron Smith is getting a little bit older, so they should really be especially watchful about his health. And Lyle Collins, their starting right tackle. I don't think he's that good. I really don't think he's that good. The Cowboys should seriously think about investing in a tackle, maybe 2 times in the draft, right? One in the first three picks, and then somewhere later for a developmental sort of swing tackle. Because 2 starting tackles and a backup is not enough, especially if your offense is so focused on running the ball, right? That's where they should go. Interior offensive line, great starting players. Connor Williams out of last year's draft, 2nd round. Travis Frederick, solid player. Zach Martin, solid player. But Travis Frederick, is coming off a injury last season. Yeah, I think he had a heart condition, right? So I'm not really sure about that situation, but I don't think their backups are sustainable in the long run, right? Joe Looney, yeah, he's proven stuff. Xavier Suafilo, I think he's proven some stuff, but they're not deserving of a starting role. I think that's something that they could address in the draft. Probably going in the 2nd to 4th rounds, choosing someone who can not just back up, but also fill in the role in the case that Travis Frederick doesn't come back. This is a solid interior offensive line. They just need backup. I'd say probably like a top 5. That's how good they are. Yeah, moving on to receiver. They're okay. Amari Cooper was a solid addition. I don't know if I agree with the 1st round that they are okay with trading a 1st round pick for Amari Cooper. I don't know, but that's just the Cowboys. They're stupid. After him, we got Michael Gallup, a 3rd round pick out of last year's draft. Alan Hearns, Randall Cobb, and everyone else is just a backup, sort of undrafted free agent player. Okay. In the draft, the Dallas Cowboys should go after a player in the 2nd or 4th round. Here's my take on it, right? Alan Hearns isn't very good of a player. Randall Cobb is getting up there in age, sort of. I don't know if he wants to be there necessarily. I don't personally, for some reason, I have a sinking suspicion. I don't trust that group. Michael Gallup has been a good addition for them in last year's draft, out of the 3rd round, but that isn't enough. Personally, I don't think that's enough. That's something that they should address. Moving on to defense, defensive end. That is a secondary need, something that they should address in the draft, 2nd to 4th round. Here's why. If they're also a 4-2, 4-3 defense, you should, and if you're a 4 wide defensive line, you should really prioritize having depth at the D end, D tackle positions. Here's the thing: the Cowboys only have two starting caliber defensive ends. No, for 3. Sorry, 3. My bad. DeMarcus Lawrence, Taco Charlton, and Robert Quinn. That's a solid 3, but they need a 4th. They need a 4th guy. I'd say address that need in the 2nd round. And in the case of DeMarcus Lawrence, I think he signed a contract extension. In the case that anything happens to him, I think the Cowboys are pretty screwed, right? So invest in the draft. Defensive tackle. That's also a need, but not a need that they should address in the draft. They already have a lot of players, young players. Malik Collins out of the 2016 draft, and Tyrone Crawford, a 3rd round pick out of the 2012 draft. He's a little bit older, but here's the thing: we had a guy, Antoine Woods and Daniel Ross. They haven't proven themselves to be good enough to start, or even back up. Like I don't really trust that. If I were the Cowboys, I would go after a sort of not necessarily a veteran, like an old guy, but someone that could help to secure that spot. They don't need to invest a lot of resources in there, because I already see right here they invested resources last year in the draft. I think that's good. I would go after a veteran player. Linebacker position. This is one of their strong points. Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, and Sean Lee. Solid trio, especially if the league is transitioning to a 3-4-2 style defense that favors that kind of defense. I think they're fine. Solid 3 players. I wouldn't touch it because you don't need to touch it. Moving on to corner, Byron Jones, Chidobe Uzie, solid duo. Honestly, I have no complaints about that duo. But what I would say, though, is that probably that's something that they don't really need to address in the draft. That's one of those positions that they can leave. I'm fine with because they got a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick in Byron Jones, Chidobe Awuzie, and then Jordan Lewis. That's a solid trio. I think I'm okay with that. The only thing I'd say though is that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they're gonna go into contract years. They're going into contract years, but no, Byron Jones is. So consider that if that's the duo you want, keep him, sign him. Otherwise, what I would say though is that they probably want a guy at free safety, just because. Xavier Woods, Jeff Heath, they're okay. George Iloka, one of their free agent signings, he could switch out and out. I think, yeah, they should go after a free safety in the second and fourth rounds, just so they can secure that job. Because I think both of them are aren't the future. They aren't the future of the Cowboys team. That's my take. Let's now move on to the New York Giants. Let's go a little bit faster this time. Quarterback, Eli Manning, you suck. You're getting old. Replace him. The Giants have a lot of picks in this draft. They have 12 total draft picks, 2 in the first round. I'd say one of those two draft picks, go after a quarterback, please. That's their primary need right now. That's what they need. Running back, don't fix. You don't need to fix it. Saquon Barkley, solid first round pick, second overall. Wayne Gallman, fourth round pick of the 2017 draft, solid. I don't really think they need to improve anything. They have a bunch of a couple other players that they signed. That's fine. Tight end position, Evan Ingram, first round pick out of the 2017 draft, and Rhett Ellison, more of a blocking tight end, more of an older veteran player. Personally, I don't think tight end is that big of a need, but if they do go after, I'd say go after a sort of veteran player, more of a veteran player, not an old player, veteran player. Let's see. Tackles, Nate Solder, Chad Wheeler, and a bunch of other nobodies. Okay, this is a major need for the Giants. This is not the future, right? They need to replace someone. They need to replace someone soon, because I think if they want to sort of to leave this offseason on the upswing and enter not this season but next season with a solid team, they need to fix this tackle position. Right tackle should be addressed in the first, second round. Left tackle, Nate Solder, he's solid, but he's not going to be there when the Giants want to go up, right? When they want to recover and get back into playoff competitive form. So he shouldn't be in their development plans. They should go after a left tackle, maybe second or fourth round. Find someone who can fit that role. Okay, interior offensive line, Will Hernandez, solid. John Halapio. No, he's not good. They need someone else. And Kevin Zeitler, traded from Cleveland. Solid starter, not the future though. I would say go after interior offensive line in the second round or third round. There are a couple players that I like in the second or third round, notably Connor McGovern, Drew Samia, that could probably fit in that role. I don't know. Moving on, receiver, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Corey Coleman. That's a solid 3. The rest of them are kind of nobodies. If I were the Giants, I'd say you can go after a wide receiver in the 4th or 7th round. And by the time 4th and 7th is where a lot of the not outstanding wide receivers and running backs are, but they're solid players, right? Skill positions are positions where you don't really need to reach up in the draft if you don't have to reach up in the draft. You can get a solid player in the 4th or 7th round. I wouldn't be over so nervous about it. Just get a couple players that could fit in the role in the case that anything were to happen. Okay, going to the defense. Okay, so the Giants are a 3-4, which is 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. And then the outside linebackers can fill the role of pass rushers usually most of the time, right? Okay, let's go from the inside. Actually, let's go from the inside. We got a Dalvin Tomlinson, 2nd round pick, 2017 draft. Pierre Olsen, B.J. Hill, and a bunch of nobodies. Obviously, that's a 3-man. Those are like literally the 3 starters. And they're not very good. That is a need. Definitely something that the Giants should go after in the first, in the 4 picks. If they can double up, please double up. This is not enough, right? This is not enough. Not sustainable. Moving to the outside, we got our pass rushers, our outside linebackers, Kareem Martin. Okay. Lorenzo Carter. Okay. A 3rd round pick out of 2017 draft. Okay. And then Marcus Golden. Okay. They're all okay players. I'd say also try to focus on getting a D-end. Someone who's someone to be in that rotation, because I don't think that's enough. That's really that's the weak point. The weak point that we discussed so far are the offensive line, defensive lines. Giants, please fix that. Okay. Linebackers are looks a little bit better. Alec Ogletree. He's bounced around on a couple teams. He's a serviceable player. Not the best. B.J. Goodson, a younger player, not the best. Everyone else in that linebacker group, not really good, not really sustainable. I'd say go after someone in the 4th through 7th round. Okay, moving on to corner. Sam Beal, a 3rd round pick out of the supplemental draft. I haven't seen a lot of tape on him. I don't even know. I'm not going to claim I know, but I think he is probably their future. I think probably because also they invested resources into them, being a 3rd round supplemental pick. On the other side, we have Janoris Jenkins, an old player, an aging player, someone that should not be on their long-term plans. And if you really think about it, the Giants aren't really set up at all to replace him. There's no one else after him really. All of them are undrafted free agents. Though I should mention that Grant Haley, he's a solid corner. He's a solid nickel corner. He has a skill versatility. He's Gucci. Okay, moving on to safety. Anton Bethea. And he's a little older. He's a little older player. Someone that they should probably think about replacing. Jabril Peppers, traded from Cleveland this offseason. And behind them, not really much. I'd say Sean Chandler is one of the. Sean Chandler was an undrafted free agent. He's a really high motor player, strong safety kind of role. But that's not enough. All right, obviously that's not enough. Free safety is also one of those positions that the Giants should think about addressing in the first 4 round picks. And that is the New York Giants. Let's go to the Redskins. Quarterback situation, it sucks. Alex Smith injured as heck. I don't even know if he can return to football. That leaves the 2 backups, Colt McCoy, Case Keenum. Both of them are older players. They're over 30. Obviously, quarterback is a position they should seriously consider drafting. The only thing I have to say, though, is they're really, really early in the rebuild period because I think the time it takes for them to get back to the swing of things, just because there's not sort of an extra force besides the quarterback that can carry that offense. Running back group is solid, but there's no one to really carry, I wouldn't say. Receiver group is really lackluster. They need a quarterback, and they need time to develop. So if they can't pick someone at 15, consider drafting him in the next year's draft. Focus on replenishing, saving money for that off season. Because right now at this point, I don't think they're they're not very contending, not a very contending team. Running back situation, like I said, pretty good. They got depth. They got Darius Geis, a couple other players they selected in 3rd and 5th round. I don't need to touch it. Tight end position, they're getting a little bit older. Jordan Reed, solid catching back, but has transitioned more into a sort of pass blocking, run blocking role. Vernon Davis, same thing. He's older. He's over 30. Tight end is something that they should consider drafting in the 1st, 2nd, and 4th round. Okay, moving on to tackle. Tackle is more of one of the positions where they should be careful about. Right, Trent Williams, solid player, sort of like a Jason Peters of the Philadelphia Eagles. They should consider replacing him soon. They have a Jerron Christian they selected in the 3rd round last season. He will be sort of pushed into that role next season, I think. And so probably they're going to need someone as a backup. I'd say draft someone in the 4th round. 4th round is a solid place. Similar situation at right tackle. Moses Morgan is a solid player. Not super old yet, but they need a backup. Interior offensive line. I like the decision that the Redskins made to put Eric Flowers in the interior. They have depth outside. They don't want to put someone with so little experience on the outside. Even as a backup, they don't trust him yet, so they're going to put him on the inside. I think that's a solid move. But they need depth. They need someone to replace him in the future. I don't think he's a long-term solution. But yeah, Eric Flowers interior at left guard. In the middle, Chase Rulier. He's a pick out of the 2017 draft. And Brandon Sheriff. Brandon Sheriff is a solid player, all-pro caliber player. Solid. I'd say yeah, as a draft, add a player, maybe add 2, just for safe measure. Defensive interior, Jonathan Allen, Jerome Payne, Matt Ioannidis, solid players. They've proven themselves, but they need some depth. I'd say go after a veteran player. Those 3 are still young. They're on their 1st year contracts. I'd say go after someone older, someone with more experience. That's my take. Outside rushers, Ryan Kerrigan, Ryan Anderson. That's a very limited rushing core, rushing defensive line group. That's a need. Go after that in their first 3 picks. Because in this league, really 2 is not enough. You need 4. You probably need 4 to keep a sustainable rotation. We've got middle linebacker Mason Foster, solid player. He's proven himself, but there's no one else. Both of the other players are 6th round, 7th round picks. I don't trust them enough to put them necessarily in the middle. That's too much more responsibility. I'd say address slot position in the second round. Linebacker is also one of those positions where it tapers off real quickly. There's a couple of good players in the 1st round, some in the 2nd, and then it tapers off from there. And then the rest of them are just development players, and then you'll be faced with the same situation again. So linebacker, consider that. Moving up to corner position, Josh Norman is getting old. They should consider moving on from him. Even though he has a long-term, like a 3-year contract, I believe. He shouldn't be a part of their long-term plans because like there's this whole rebuilding process will take more than 3 years, I think, to be truly competitive. So And also too, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, their one of their backup corners. He's just a backup, but he's also getting old, and I think age is going to catch up to him. So if I were the Redskins, I would seriously address cornerback position, someone to go opposite of Fabian Moreau, a third-round pick out of the 2017 draft. I'd say address it with one of the third-round picks. Yeah, that's a solid need. Because everyone else after him, after those 4 players I just mentioned, there's no one else. There's no one else really deserving of that spot, I'd say. Moving on to safety, Lennon Collins, good player. DeShazer Everett, he's been solid, loyal to the team. I don't think he's a good player though. I think there are better options out there. Safety is something that they should address with a veteran player, not a draft player. Here's why. We got a Jeremy Reeves, Troy Apke, Monte Nicholson. These are 3 players that I can see in the future them developing. That's my take. That's my take on the Washington Redskins. And would you look at that? We're all done. We've covered all 4 teams from the NFC East: the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, and Washington Redskins. That was a long episode. I recognize. I'm sorry. I just know too much about the Eagles, I guess, and so I talked a little bit more than I should have. Going forward, I'll keep this 7-minute, 8-minute time pace per team. I'm going to make the podcast a little bit shorter because I don't think you want to sit through an hour of listening to my voice. But these are things I'm learning. These are things that can be improved, that will be improved, and within the next couple episodes. Next up in episode 2, we have the AFC East with the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills, and the Miami Dolphins. This has been the Overtime Win Podcast with your host, Tim Greenman. Signing out. Peace.